No, with 7. Alright guys, today is January the 13th, 2020. This is page 6 in our binder. Remember, keep your binder organized. Alright, if you were absent on Friday we started negative exponents. Anything raised to a negative exponent, you move to the opposite side of a fraction and make it positive. If there is a fraction, you just move it to the opposite side. If there's no fraction, you put a 1 on top and move it to the bottom, and now you make it a positive exponent. The new rule today is 0 exponent. Anything raised to the 0 power will become a 1. So it's not x to the 1 anymore, it's just, it's not x0, it's now 1. So if it was just that, there would be no x at all. Okay, because the whole thing that has an exponent of 0 becomes a 1. Now let me explain to you why this is what it is. Remember we had a to the third and a to the third? When I had the same amount on top as on the bottom, they divided to give me what?
0.
A 1.
What?
Well, if we follow the rule of exponents, when I divide variables, we subtract their exponent. What's 3 minus 3? 0. So a to the 0 is 1. Why? Because you have the same amount on top as on the bottom, and they divide to give me a 1. Well, that's the reason why this rule works. Anything to the power of 0 is 1. And let's say I had a huge number, doesn't matter what that number was or is. Any number raised to the 0, doesn't matter if it's a number, a variable that represents a number, it's always equal to 1. Why? Because it means that you had the same amount on top divided by the bottom, and it gave you a 1. You cancel out to give you a 1. Alright, well that's the rule. If you understand it, good. If not, just know that anything to the 0 power is a 1. So if I have x to the 0, that's a 1. Y to the 0, that's a 1. And 1 divided by 1 is just 1. If I have an exponent outside and exponent inside, like on number 5, what are we supposed to do with those exponents? Multiply them. What's 0 times 11? 0. 0 times 10. 3 also has an exponent. It's a 1. 1 times 0. 10 times 0. 1 times 0. What are all these exponents going to be raised to? 0, which is going to equal 1. Anything raised to the power of 0 is 1. Alright, so let's do some examples. Most of the rules that we'll do today is division. And we know that when we divide variables, we subtract their exponents. Only the exponents. These rules are only for exponents. 16 and 8 are not exponents. So they just divide normal. These rules are only for exponents. So if I'm dividing, what do I do with the exponents? Subtract. So this is 2 minus 0. What's 2 minus 0? This is just x to the 2. If it's positive, it stays where it's at. So we're done with that one. We have another division. We have y to the negative 4 and y to the 3. So we subtract the 3, the one that's on the bottom. What's negative 4 minus 3? Negative 7. Remember, if I have a negative, this is from Friday, it tells you I don't belong here. I belong on the opposite side of a fraction. So you make a fraction and you move that to the bottom, and now it's positive. Question.
Stop.
Let's do number 4. You have an x to the negative 7 on top divided by x to the 2 on the bottom. What do we do with exponents? Subtract. What's negative 7 minus 2? Same signs, add and keep. Different signs, subtract. Keep the sign of the larger one, and that'll be exact. That is same sign, so we add and keep the negative sign. That's a negative 9. And then the y has no other y to combine or divide with, so it stays exactly where it's at with the same exponent. 9 equals.
Okay.
Only what is negative moves. So our answer is y to the 8 over x to the 9. On the bottom. Only x had a negative exponent, so we move it to the opposite side. We already did number 5. Let's do number 6. Careful because we actually have a negative on the bottom also. So we start with a negative 3 and we're subtracting a negative 5. When we subtract, what happens? Minus a negative. We're going to change that second number to a plus. Very good. We're going to add. That's negative 3 plus 5 is going to be 2. So this is x to the 2. We have y to the 6 and y to the nothing, but it is there once, so it's a 1. And again, we subtract, so that's y to the 5. They're both positive, so we're done. They stay where they're at. Only if they're negative, we worry about changing them or moving them. 18 and 3. Regular numbers, not exponents, so we just divide normal. 18 divided by 3 is 6. We have x to the negative 5 and only that, so that stays exactly where it's at. There's no other x to the negative 5 is in.
Do we put the over a fraction?
Yes, we will. Very good. Let's finish. Y to the 6 and y to the 5 will give me 1, right? You can put the 1 or just leave it. Either way, it's correct. And Asha is correct. We have to move that x to the bottom. Because it's a negative 5, so move it to the bottom and make it a positive x. Bear with me, we're almost done. We have 2x to the negative 2, and that negative 2 is inside the parentheses, not outside. So it actually, we really don't need those parentheses there. They just have them there extra. You can take them off, doesn't matter. The 2, if you want to think about it, it's going to divide with, there's nothing on the bottom, so it's a 1. 2 divided by 1 is 2. Then we have x to the negative 2 divided by x to the 5, so we have to subtract. Negative 2 minus 5, negative 7, and then there is only one y. It's already on the bottom, and it's a positive 5, so just leave it where it's at. Doesn't go anywhere, but it stays where it's at. That negative cannot be on the top, so it has to come down to the bottom, make it positive, and there's already a y to the 5 on the bottom, leave it. It started on the bottom and it was positive, it stays where it's at. Only negative numbers move to the opposite side after you've already added or subtracted whatever your operation is. Questions on that one? Okay. We have x to the negative 6 and x to the 4, so we're going to do negative 6 minus 4, which is negative 6 minus 4 is negative 10. On the bottom, we have y to the 0. What is y to the 0? 1. I realize since it's 1, if I divide by 1, it doesn't change anything, so you actually don't need that 1 on the bottom. We cannot have x on top, it has to go to the bottom because of that 10. And we put the 1 on top because we can't just have a fraction with no numerator. So we put a 1. That's done. Alright, word problem. I guarantee you there will be one problem like number 10 on our test. Probably more than one, but just FYI. It starts with the area of the triangle, of a rectangle is this. How do we find the area of a rectangle? Length times width. Area equals length times width. Then they give me one dimension, the length, and they're asking me for a missing dimension. Well, when we get area, we have to multiply. To solve for one of the dimensions, what do you think we're going to have to do? Divide, the opposite. So if I want to find the width, I would divide both sides by the length so that the length would cancel out. But if I divide on one side, I have to do on the other. So to find the width, I have to get the area and divide it by the length. So the area, 81, x to the 10, y to the 2, divided by the width. And that will equal, divided by the length, and that will equal the width. 81 divided by 3 is 20. No, I think it's 27 or 26. 27? Yes. You guys have calculators? Okay. X to the 10 on the top, 6 on the bottom, so x to the quattro is correct, 4. Y to the 2 and y to the negative 4, that's 2 minus a negative 4. Minus the negative changes to positive, so that's 2 plus 4. 6. Okay. Questions? Brayden, question? Nope. Anybody? Question? Question? Went once, twice? Alright, turn it over. The back side is our assignment. Let's take a look. Okay, so pretty much very similar to the front. If it helps you out, wherever there's a negative variable, put a 1 in front. Like on 7, on number 2, on number 3. Because that's a negative variable, not exponent. They're not the same rules. Remember, these rules only apply to a negative exponent. So if there's a negative 1 here on number 7, it's just negative 1 divided by negative 1, which is a positive 1. Okay, and then you do have to do variable with variable, okay? But just don't assume the exponent is the same as the leading coefficient there. Okay, the rules only apply to the exponent, negative exponent. So it's just negative 1 divided by negative 1. Okay? Alright, this is our assignment.